My name is Rachel Lancaster, and I'm 68 years old. And on a beautiful Saturday morning in April, I returned home from the hospital, to an empty house. My son and his wife had sold my home and relocated to Belgium with their children, without telling me. They took everything. Every memory. Every belonging. Every piece of the life I built over 43 years. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me where you're watching from, and what time it is over there. And please like and subscribe, it truly helps more people hear stories like mine. I still remember the weight of my body as I stepped out of that Uber. My legs were shaking. Not just from the week I'd spent in that sterile hospital bed, hooked up to IVs and monitors, but from something deeper. An exhaustion that lived in my bones. The kind that makes you feel like you're carrying the world on your shoulders, and all you want is to collapse into your own bed, in your own home, surrounded by your own things. The driver helped me up the walkway. I thanked him, my voice barely above a whisper. He asked if I needed help getting inside, and I waved him off with a tired smile. I'll be fine, I told him. My family's inside. But they weren't. The front door was wide open. Not just unlocked. Open. Swinging slightly in the spring breeze like some kind of mockery. And I remember standing there on my own porch, staring at that open door, and feeling my heart start to hammer in my chest. Because something was wrong. Everything was wrong. I called out. Daniel? Lena? Kids? My voice echoed back at me, hollow and strange. I stepped inside, and that's when the world tilted. Empty. The living room was empty. Completely, utterly empty. The couch where I'd spent countless evenings reading to my grandchildren, gone. The coffee table my late husband had built with his own hands, gone. The bookshelf that held 30 years of photo albums, gone. The walls were bare. Not a single picture frame. Not a single nail hole filled in. Just blank, accusing walls staring back at me. I walked through my house like a ghost haunting her own life. Each room was the same. The dining room table where we'd celebrated every birthday, every holiday, vanished. The china cabinet that had been my mother's, stolen. My bedroom furniture, every piece, gone. Even the curtains had been stripped from the windows. The house was nothing but empty rooms and echoing footsteps. My hands were trembling as I moved from room to room, my breath coming in short, painful gasps. I checked every closet. Every cabinet. They'd taken my clothes. My shoes. My winter coats. The quilts I'd spent years making. Everything. They'd even taken the hangers. I stumbled into what used to be my home office. The desk, gone. The filing cabinet with all my important documents, gone. Birth certificates. Marriage license. Medical records. Insurance papers. Tax returns going back decades. All of it. Vanished. That's when I saw it. Or rather, didn't see it. The driveway was visible from that window. And my car, the silver Honda that Daniel had helped me pick out after his father died, it wasn't there. The driveway was as empty as my house. I felt my knees buckle. I caught myself against the bare wall, sliding down until I was sitting on the hardwood floor that suddenly felt foreign beneath me. The floor I'd mopped 1,000 times. The floor where my grandchildren had played. And I understood, in that horrible, crystal-clear moment, that this wasn't a robbery. Robbers don't take everything. They don't strip a house down to its bare walls. They don't take family photos and documents and winter coats. They take valuables. They make a mess. They break in. This wasn't broken into. This was planned. This was methodical. This was deliberate. And there was no note. No message on the counter. No text on my phone. Nothing. Just silence. Just emptiness. Just the echo of my own breathing in rooms that used to be filled with life. I sat on that floor, in that empty house, and I whispered the words that broke something inside me. My own son did this. My own son. Let me tell you how we got here. Let me tell you how a mother ends up alone on the floor of her empty house, betrayed by the child she raised. 3 years ago, my husband Jack died. Serious infection. One minute we were planning our 40th anniversary trip, and the next minute I was planning his funeral. And just like that, I became one of those women. You know the ones. The widows who everyone worries about. The ones who suddenly seem fragile and vulnerable and in need of protection. Daniel was wonderful at first. He was there for the funeral arrangements. He helped me sort through Jack's things. He called me every day to check in. He'd come over on weekends with Lena and the kids, and for a little while, the house didn't feel quite so empty. "Mom," he said to me one evening, about 6 months after Jack passed. "Lena and I have been talking. We don't like you being here alone. What if something happens? What if you fall? What if you have a medical emergency?" I told him I was fine. I was managing. I had neighbors. I had friends from church. But he persisted. "Why don't you move in with us? We have that extra bedroom. The kids would love having grandma around all the time. And we'd feel so much better knowing you're not alone." I should have seen it then. But I didn't. Because I was lonely. Because the house felt too big without Jack. Because I missed my grandchildren. So I said yes. That was my first mistake. The second mistake was paying for the renovations. Daniel said they needed to update the house to accommodate me. A bathroom renovation so you don't have to use stairs. Some Kit Willy updates. Maybe extend the living room a bit. He showed me plans. He talked about accessibility. He made it sound like he was doing this for me. I wrote the checks. $65,000. Money from Jack's life insurance. Money that was supposed to be my security. But Daniel was family. My son. Why wouldn't I invest in a home where I'd be living? The renovations took months. And during those months, something shifted. I started to notice things. Small things at first. Lena would get irritated when I'd offer to help with dinner. "We've got it, Rachel. Why don't you just relax?" But it wasn't said kindly. It was said like I was in the way. Daniel started making decisions without consulting me. He'd change plans we'd made without telling me. He'd talk about their house in a way that made it clear I was a guest, not a resident. When I'd suggest things, maybe we could go visit my sister for a weekend, maybe we could plan a family dinner, he'd brush me off. "We'll see, Mom. We're pretty busy." The kids started calling me Rachel instead of Grandma. Lena's influence, I'm sure of it. And when I corrected them gently, Lena would say, "Oh, we're teaching them to be respectful to all adults equally." It's a new parenting philosophy. I felt myself shrinking. Becoming smaller. Taking up less space. I'd stay in my room more. I'd skip family dinners, saying I wasn't hungry. Because the truth was, I didn't feel welcome at the table. And then came the paperwork. "Mom," Daniel said one afternoon, sliding a stack of documents across the Kit Willy counter. "We need to talk about your house." My house. The house I'd lived in for 43 years. The house where Jack and I had raised Daniel. The house that held every memory of my married life. "What about it?" I asked. "Well, it's just sitting there. Empty. It's not being maintained. The property taxes are still coming out of your account. It doesn't make sense. You're not going back there, right?" You're happy here with us? I wasn't happy. But I nodded anyway. Because what was I supposed to say? So Lena and I were thinking, why don't we simplify things? Transfer the house into my name. Just for paperwork purposes. To make things easier. That way I can handle the taxes, the maintenance, any issues that come up. You won't have to worry about it. And obviously, it's still yours. This is just to make the legal side simpler. I remember staring at those papers. Something in my gut twisted. Some instinct screaming at me not to sign. But Daniel was my son. He'd never hurt me. He was trying to help. Wasn't he? I don't know, Daniel. That's a big decision. Can I think about it? His face changed. Just for a second. A flash of something cold. But then he smiled. Of course, Mom. Take your time. I just thought it would take some stress off your plate. But after that, things got worse. Lena barely spoke to me. Daniel started staying late at work. The kids were suddenly always busy with activities when I suggested we spend time together. I felt like I was being iced out of my own family. And then I got sick. It started with dizziness. Fatigue. I'd wake up feeling like I hadn't slept at all. I'd forget things, not big things, just little details. Where I'd put my keys. What day it was. Daniel noticed. Of course he noticed. Mom, I'm worried about you. You're not yourself. I think you need to see a doctor. He drove me to appointments. He sat in on consultations. And somewhere along the way, he started answering questions for me. The doctors would ask me how I was feeling, and Daniel would jump in. She's been very confused lately. Forgetting things. We found her wandering outside at 2 a.m. last week. That wasn't true. But I was so tired. So worn down. I didn't correct him. The diagnosis was stress-related. Possible early signs of cognitive decline. They wanted to run more tests. They prescribed medication. And Daniel, my helpful, concerned son, took charge of everything. Don't worry, Mom. I'll handle your medications. I'll make sure you get to your appointments. You just focus on resting. And I did. I rested. I took the pills he gave me. I stopped asking questions. I stopped fighting. That's what they wanted. That's what they'd been working toward. They wanted me docile. Manageable. Easy to erase. The hospital stay was supposed to be routine. Some tests. Some monitoring. They kept me for observation because my blood pressure was erratic. Daniel visited once. Once in an entire week. He stayed for maybe 20 minutes, checked his phone the whole time, and left saying he had to get back to the kids. Lena didn't visit at all. The nurses were kind. They asked if I had family coming. I lied and said they were busy. Because admitting the truth, that my own son couldn't be bothered to sit with his sick mother for more than 20 minutes, was too humiliating. I should have known something was wrong. I should have sensed it. But I was so focused on just getting through each day, on convincing the doctors I was well enough to go home, that I didn't see what was happening outside those hospital walls. They were moving. They were packing. They were selling. They were erasing me. And I had no idea. When the hospital finally discharged me, I called Daniel to pick me up. No answer. I called Lena. Straight to voicemail. I tried 3 more times before I finally gave up and called an Uber. The driver asked me if I was feeling okay. I told him I was just tired. I gave him my address, my real address. The house I'd lived in for 43 years. Not Daniel's house. Not anymore. I wanted to go home. And that's how I ended up standing in my driveway, staring at an open door, about to walk into the worst moment of my life. After I collapsed on that floor, after I sat there in the emptiness trying to make sense of what I was seeing, I forced myself to stand up. My whole body was shaking. I walked through the house one more time, hoping maybe I'd missed something. Hoping maybe there was an explanation I hadn't considered. But there wasn't. The house had been stripped clean. Professionally. Completely. This wasn't the work of a few hours. This took days. Maybe weeks. And it happened while I was lying in a hospital bed, worried about my blood pressure, while my son visited me for 20 minutes and pretended everything was fine. I found myself in what used to be the master bedroom. The room I'd shared with Jack for decades. The room where we'd whispered about our dreams, our fears, our hopes for Daniel's future. I stood at the window, looking out at the backyard where Daniel had learned to ride a bike, where we'd hosted birthday parties and barbecues and lazy summer afternoons. And that's when I saw it. A piece of paper. Wedged between the window and the sill. Like someone had been careless. Like they'd almost succeeded in their perfect disappearing act, but they'd left behind one small piece of evidence. I pulled it out with trembling hands. It was a real estate document. A closing statement. And as I read it, as the words sank in, I felt something inside me shift from grief to rage. The house had been sold. 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks. I'd still been living at Daniel's house then. I hadn't even been in the hospital yet. The sale had closed, money had changed hands, and a new owner had purchased my house, for $438,000. The seller's name on the document, Daniel Jack Lancaster. My son had sold my house without telling me. Without my knowledge. Without my permission. And judging by the date, he'd been planning this for months. This wasn't some impulsive decision. This wasn't a mistake. This was premeditated. This was calculated. This was cruel. I looked at the signature on the seller's line. It was supposed to be mine. Rachel M. Lancaster. But I didn't sign this. I never signed this. I would remember signing away from my home. I would remember agreeing to this. Unless I wouldn't. Unless those pills Daniel had been giving me were doing more than treating my stress. Unless those appointments he'd been so helpful about had been used to build a case that I was incompetent. Incapable. Unable to make my own decisions. They'd waited until I was sick. They'd waited until I was vulnerable. Because that's when I was easiest to erase. That's when they could do whatever they wanted, take whatever they wanted, and I wouldn't be able to stop them. The emptiness of the house suddenly felt different. It wasn't just an absence of furniture. It was an absence of respect. Of love. Of basic human decency. My son had looked at me, his mother, who'd given him life, who'd raised him, who'd sacrificed for him, and decided I was disposable. An inconvenience. An obstacle between him and his freedom. I stood in that empty bedroom, holding that document, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years. Not since Jack died. I felt angry. Furiously, righteously angry. No tears. Not anymore. I'd cried enough. I'd been weak enough. I'd been vulnerable enough. They'd taken advantage of every soft moment, every trusting instinct, every maternal instinct that told me to believe in my son. But that was done. That version of Rachel Lancaster was gone. She'd died in this empty house along with every happy memory I'd ever had here. I pulled out my phone. My hands were steady now. And I called the police. The dispatcher answered on the second ring. 911, what's your emergency? My name is Rachel Lancaster. I'm at 847 Maple Grove Drive. I've been robbed. No, not robbed. I've been a victim of fraud. Elder abuse. My son sold my house without my permission while I was in the hospital. He's taken everything. And I need help. 2 officers arrived within 15 minutes. A man and a woman, both young enough to be my children. They found me sitting on the front porch steps, still holding that real estate document, staring at my empty driveway. "Mrs. Lancaster," the female officer said gently. "I'm Officer Gentle. This is Officer Willie. You called about a theft?" I stood up, my legs steadier than they'd been in months. "Not a theft. Fraud. Identity theft. Elder financial abuse. Possibly forgery. Take your pick." I handed her the document. She scanned it quickly, her expression shifting from sympathy to concern. "This shows you sold the house 6 weeks ago." "I didn't sell anything. I never signed that document. My signature was forged. My son forged it. And then he waited until I was hospitalized to come here and remove every single thing I owned. Including items that weren't even part of the house. Personal belongings. Legal documents. Family heirlooms. Everything." Officer Willie walked through the house, documenting the emptiness with his phone. Officer Gentle sat with me on the porch steps, taking notes as I told her everything. I started from the beginning. Jack's death. Moving in with Daniel. The renovations I'd paid for. The pressure to sign over the house. The medical issues. The pills. The hospital stay. The single 20-minute visit. And finally, coming home to this. "Mrs. Lancaster," she said carefully. "These are serious allegations. Do you have any proof that you didn't consent to this sale?" "I have my medical records showing I was competent. I have bank statements showing I paid for renovations to Daniel's house. Why would I do that if I was planning to sell my own home? I have a will, filed with my attorney, that specifically leaves this house to Daniel after my death, not before. Why would I have a will to leave him the house if I'd already signed it over to him?" Officer Gentle nodded slowly. "Do you know where these documents are now?" "Gone. All of it." He took my filing cabinet. "But my attorney has copies. My bank has records. And I'm guessing if you look at that signature on the real estate document closely enough, you'll find it doesn't match my actual signature." Officer Willie came back outside. "The house is completely empty. Even the light fixtures are gone. This wasn't a casual move. This was professional." "Because he hired movers," I said. "He planned this. He probably had this scheduled for the exact week I'd be in the hospital. He knew I'd be out of the way. He knew I wouldn't be able to stop him." The officers exchanged glances. Officer Gentle spoke into her radio, requesting a detective. "Mrs. Lancaster, we're going to need you to come down to the station. We need to make a full statement. We need to contact your attorney, your bank, your doctor. We need to build a case." "A case?" I looked at her. "You mean you believe me?" "Ma'am, I've seen this before. More often than you'd think. Adult children taking advantage of aging parents. Usually it's financial coercion. Sometimes it's outright theft. This." She gestured at the empty house. "This is one of the more extreme cases. But yes, I believe you. And we're going to investigate." I felt something break loose in my chest. Relief. Validation. Someone believed me. Someone was taking me seriously. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't confused. I wasn't incompetent. I was a victim. At the station, I spent 4 hours telling my story to Detective Williams, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She asked me hundreds of questions. Did Daniel have power of attorney? No. Had I ever discussed selling the house with him? No. Had I signed any documents recently? Not willingly. Did he have access to my identification documents? Yes, he'd taken my purse once, and said he was getting my insurance card for a doctor's appointment. That's when he could have copied your ID, Detective Williams said. Made a fake one to use at the real estate closing. Or he could have practiced forging your signature. She showed me the signature on the real estate document. It looked like mine. Almost. But there were tiny differences. The way the R curved. The slant of the L. Little things I'd never noticed about my own handwriting until I saw someone else trying to copy it. This is forgery, Detective Williams said flatly. Combined with identity theft, elder abuse, and possibly mail fraud if he redirected any legal notices about the sale. Mrs. Lancaster, your son is looking at serious criminal charges. Good, I said. And I meant it. She made calls while I sat in her office. She contacted my bank. They confirmed I hadn't accessed my account in weeks, but there had been a large deposit 6 weeks ago. $438,000. Then, over the next few weeks, systematic withdrawals. $20,000 here. $30,000 there. The account had been drained down to less than $15,000. He took it all, I whispered. He sold my house and took all the money. We're freezing the account now, Detective Williams said. Any remaining funds will be protected pending investigation. And we're going to track where those withdrawals went. My attorney, Jessie Brennan, arrived an hour later. She was furious. Rachel, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you tell me any of this was happening? Because I didn't know, I said tiredly. I didn't know until I came home to an empty house. Jessie pulled out her files. She had copies of everything. My will. My power of attorney documents, which specifically stated they only activated if I was declared incompetent by 2 independent physicians. Deed records showing I was the sole owner of the house. Documentation of every major decision I'd made in the past 5 years, all signed and notarized, proving I was of sound mind. This is an open and shut case of fraud, Jessie told Detective Williams. Rachel never consented to this sale. She never signed that document. And Daniel had no legal authority to sell her property. What does that mean? I asked. What happens now? It means the sale is void, Jessie said firmly. It means the new buyers don't actually own the house, you do. It means Daniel committed multiple felonies. And it means you're going to get everything back. What about the new owners? They paid for the house. They'll have to sue Daniel to get their money back. But that's not your problem. Your problem is recovering from what your son did to you. That night, I stayed in a hotel. Jessie paid for it with her credit card, promising we'd sort out my finances once my bank accounts were accessible again. I lay in that generic hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, and I didn't cry. I didn't fall apart. Instead, I planned. I'd been passive for too long. I'd let Daniel make decisions for me. I'd let him convince me I was weak, confused, incapable. But I wasn't any of those things. I was a woman who'd been married for 40 years. Who'd raised a child. Who'd survived widowhood. Who'd managed a household and finances and relationships. I was strong. I'd just forgotten about it for a while. But I remembered now. And Daniel was about to remember too. Over the next 3 days, Detective Williams built her case. She interviewed my doctors, all of them confirmed I was competent, coherent, and capable of making my own decisions. The early signs of cognitive decline Daniel had reported? Stress. Exhaustion. Mild depression from grief. Nothing that would make me unable to consent to major legal decisions. She subpoenaed records from the real estate closing. Turns out Daniel had shown up with a fake ID in my name. The notary had been suspicious, but Daniel had been confident, friendly, persuasive. My mother can't travel right now, but she's given me power of attorney to handle this. He'd shown forged documents. He'd lied to everyone. The bank records showed where the money went. Wire transfers to international accounts. Large cash withdrawals. Payments to moving companies. And one particularly damning transfer, $50,000 to a Belgian visa application service. He'd been planning to leave the country. He'd been planning to take my money and run. And I would have been left with nothing. Homeless. Penniless. Alone. Detective Williams contacted Interpol. She reached out to Belgian authorities. She filed charges: felony fraud, identity theft, elder financial abuse, forgery, theft over $100,000. And then we waited. I spent those days at a women's shelter. Jessie had offered to let me stay with her, but I declined. The shelter was full of women who'd been betrayed by people they loved. I fit right in. We shared meals. We shared stories. We shared the quiet understanding that sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones who hurt you most. One woman, Teresa, had been financially abused by her husband for 20 years. Another, Kim, had been swindled by her daughter. We formed a strange little support group, sitting around the communal table at night, drinking cheap tea, talking about how we'd rebuild our lives. The hardest part, Teresa said one night, is accepting that they did it on purpose. That it wasn't a mistake. That they looked at you and decided you were worth less than whatever they wanted. I nodded. That was exactly it. Daniel had looked at me, his mother, and decided I was worth less than $400,000 and a fresh start in Belgium. He'd decided I was disposable. But he was wrong. I wasn't disposable. I was Rachel Lancaster. And I was about to remind him exactly who he'd messed with. On the third day, my phone started ringing. I was sitting in the shelter common room, helping Kim fill out job applications, when my phone lit up. Daniel's name. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. And again. And again. 20 missed calls in less than an hour. I listened to the voicemails on speakerphone. Kim and Teresa sat with me, listening to my son fall apart. The first message: Mom? Mom, where are you? We need to talk. Call me back. The second: Mom, seriously, this isn't funny. The police called me. They're asking about the house. You need to call them and tell them there's been a misunderstanding. The third: What the hell, Mom? You filed charges? Against me? Your own son? After everything I've done for you? The fourth: Lena's freaking out. The kids are crying. You're tearing this family apart. How could you do this to us? By the 10th message, he was panicking. Mom, please. The Belgian authorities stopped us at immigration. They're holding our passports. They're asking about fraud. Our bank accounts are frozen. We can't access any money. We can't get our visas processed. Mom, you have to fix this. By the 15th message, Lena had taken the phone. Rachel, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you're ruining our lives. Daniel was trying to help you. He was trying to take care of you. And this is how you repay him? By calling the police? By lying about what happened? You're sick, Rachel. You need help. And when this is all over, don't expect to ever see your grandchildren again. The 20th message was Daniel again, his voice hoarse and desperate. Mom, I'm sorry. Okay? I'm sorry. I made a mistake. We can fix this. Just call the police and tell them you were confused. Tell them you did agree to sell the house but you forgot. Tell them you gave me permission. Please, Mom. They're saying I could go to prison. They're saying extradition. Please. I sat there, staring at my phone, listening to my son beg. And I felt nothing. No anger. No satisfaction. No guilt. Just a strange, calm emptiness. Kim looked at me. Are you going to call him back? No, I said simply. I'm going to finish my tea. And I did. I sat in that shelter common room, drinking lukewarm tea from a chipped mug, while my son and his wife panicked in Belgium. While their perfect escape plan crumbled around them. While they finally faced consequences for what they'd done. Detective Williams called me that evening. Mrs. Lancaster, Belgian authorities have detained your son and daughter-in-law for questioning. They're cooperating with our investigation. Their bank accounts have been frozen pending resolution of the fraud case. And I have more good news. What's that? We tracked down most of the money. Daniel moved it around, but he wasn't as clever as he thought. We've recovered approximately $360,000. The rest he spent on the move and visa applications. But you'll get most of it back. And the house? The sale is being voided as we speak. The new buyers are understandably upset, but their lawyers agree this is a clear case of fraud. They'll be compensated from Daniel's assets once we seize them. But the house is legally yours again. You can move back in whenever you're ready. Move back in? I looked around the shelter. At the bare walls. At Kim and Teresa eating dinner together at the communal table. I don't think so. No? That house is full of ghosts, Detective. My husband. My old life. My belief that my son loved me. I don't want to live with those ghosts anymore. So what will you do? Sell it. On my terms. Use the money to start over. Somewhere new. Somewhere Daniel doesn't know about. Somewhere I can rebuild. There was a pause. Then, I think that's very wise, Mrs. Lancaster. Please, I said. Call me Rachel. The legal process took months. Daniel and Lena were extradited back to the United States to face charges. They pleaded guilty in exchange for reduced sentences, 3 years for Daniel, 18 months for Lena. Their assets were seized to repay the defrauded home buyers. Their dream life in Belgium was over before it even began. I didn't go to the sentencing hearing. Jesse went on my behalf and reported back. Daniel had cried. He'd apologized. He'd claimed he'd made a terrible mistake, that he'd been under financial pressure, that he'd never meant to hurt me. He asked if you'd visit him, Jesse told me. In prison. What did you say? I said I'd relay the message. I thought about it for a long time. Could I forgive him? Could I look at my son through prison glass and see the boy I'd raised instead of the man who'd betrayed me? Maybe someday. But not now. Not yet. Not when the wound was still so fresh. I sold the house. Jesse handled all the details. It went for $460,000, even more than Daniel had gotten for it. I used some of the money to repay the shelter that had housed me. I donated to organizations that helped elder abuse victims. And with the rest, I bought myself a small, cozy apartment in a senior community 2 states away. The apartment is bright. It has big windows that let in morning sunlight. It has a small kitchen where I can cook meals for one without feeling pathetic. It has a living room just big enough for a comfortable couch, a reading chair, and a bookshelf I'm slowly filling with new books. Not replacements for the ones Daniel stole. New books. New stories. New beginnings. I've made friends here. Real friends. Susan lives next door and we have coffee every morning. Patricia and I take walks together in the evenings. James, the widower from the floor above, invited me to join his book club. These people don't know my story. They don't know about Daniel or Lena or the betrayal. They just know Rachel, a woman who likes mystery novels and herb tea and watching sunrise from her balcony. Sometimes I think about Daniel. About whether he thinks about me while he's in prison. About whether he's sorry. Really sorry, not just sorry he got caught. I wonder if he understands what he destroyed. It wasn't just my house or my money or my belongings. It was my ability to trust. My belief in family. My sense of safety in the world. But mostly, I don't think about him at all. Because I've discovered something surprising in this new life I'm building, I'm happy. Genuinely, peacefully happy. I woke up in my little apartment and I'm grateful. I spend my days however I want. I take classes at the community center. I volunteer at the library. I've started painting, something I always wanted to try but never had time for. I'm not the woman I was. I'm not the trusting mother who believed blood made family. I'm not the grieving widow who lost herself in her son's life. I'm not the confused patient who lets others make decisions for her. I'm Rachel Lancaster. And I'm stronger than I ever knew. Sometimes people at the senior center ask if I have children. I've learned to smile and change the subject. Because the truth is complicated. Yes, I have a son. Somewhere. In prison, then eventually released to rebuild his own life. But do I have family? Not really. Not the kind that matters. Family isn't about blood. It's not about biology or obligation. It's about respect. It's about love. It's about showing up. It's about choosing each other, day after day, even when it's hard. Daniel stopped choosing me the moment he decided his freedom mattered more than my security. But Susan chooses me every morning when she knocks on my door with 2 cups of coffee. Patricia chooses me every evening when we walk our usual loop around the community gardens. James chooses me every Wednesday when he saves me a seat at the book club. That's family. That's what matters. The lawyers tell me Daniel's been released. He served his time. He's living somewhere in the Midwest, working a construction job, still married to Lena, though I can't imagine what that marriage looks like now. He's sent letters. I've left them unopened. He's called. I blocked the number. He's asked Jesse to arrange a meeting. I've declined. Maybe I'm being cruel. Maybe I should forgive him. Maybe I should give him a chance to explain, to apologize properly, to try to rebuild something. But here's what I've learned: I don't owe him my forgiveness. I don't owe him my time. I don't owe him another chance to hurt me. I spent 65 years being the kind of woman who put everyone else first. Who swallowed her own needs to keep peace. Who forgave too easily and trusted too completely. That woman is gone. She died on the floor of an empty house, whispering my own son to walls that didn't echo back with love. The woman I am now knows her worth. She protects her peace. She chooses carefully who gets access to her heart. And she doesn't apologize for it. If Daniel wants redemption, he can find it somewhere else. If he wants forgiveness, he can find it within himself. But he won't find it from me. Not because I'm bitter. Not because I'm angry. But because I've finally learned that some betrayals are too deep to heal. Some relationships are too broken to fix. And some people, no matter how much you love them, aren't safe to love anymore. I'm sitting on my balcony right now, watching the sun set over the community gardens. I have a cup of chamomile tea in my hands and a mystery novel waiting on the table beside me. In an hour, Patricia will knock on my door and we'll take our evening walk. Tomorrow, Susan and I are driving to the farmer's market. Next week, the The book club is discussing a novel about resilience and second chances. This is my life now. Small. Quiet. Mine. And it's enough. More than enough, actually. Because I've learned something these past 2 years. Something I wish I'd understood decades ago. You don't need a big house to have a home. You don't need blood relatives to have a family. You don't need grand gestures to have love. You just need to respect yourself enough to walk away from people who don't respect you. Even when those people are your own children. Especially when those people are your own children. I think about the woman I was when Jack died. So lost. So desperate for connection that I let Daniel pull me into his life and slowly erase mine. I think about how I ignored every red flag, every warning sign, every instinct that told me something was wrong. Because I wanted to believe. I wanted to trust. I wanted to think that being a mother meant something. That raising a child, loving a child, sacrificing for a child would be rewarded with loyalty and care. But life doesn't work that way. Love doesn't work that way. You can do everything right and still end up betrayed. You can give everything and still end up with nothing. And that's not your failure. That's theirs. Daniel's betrayal wasn't about me being a bad mother. I was a good mother. I was present and loving and supportive. I put him through college. I helped him buy his first car. I babysat his children every weekend so he and Lena could have date nights. I paid for those renovations without hesitation because I thought I was investing in our family. His betrayal was about him making a choice. A selfish, cruel, calculated choice. He looked at his aging mother and saw an opportunity. He saw dollar signs. He saw an obstacle to the life he wanted. And he removed that obstacle without a second thought. That's on him. Not me. It took me a long time to understand that. To stop blaming myself. To stop wondering what I did wrong or what I could have done differently. The answer is nothing. I did nothing wrong. I was just unlucky enough to raise a son who valued money more than his mother. But you know what? In a strange way, I'm grateful. Not for the betrayal itself, I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone. But for what came after. For the forced awakening. For the realization that I was stronger than I thought. For the opportunity to rebuild my life on my own terms instead of living in the shadow of grief and obligation. If Daniel hadn't done what he did, I'd probably still be living in that guest room, growing smaller and quieter, disappearing a little more each day until I was nothing but a burden they complained about behind closed doors. I'd be waiting for crumbs of affection. Grateful for minimal attention. Apologizing for taking up space. Now? I take up exactly as much space as I want. I paint in the middle of the living room and leave my supplies out overnight. I eat dinner at 10 p.m. if I feel like it. I watch old movies at full volume. I leave dishes in the sink. I wear mismatched socks. I do whatever I want, whenever I want, and I don't apologize to anyone. This apartment is mine. This life is mine. And no one can take it from me again because I've learned how to protect it. I've learned to recognize manipulation. The guilt trips. The subtle criticism. The ways people make you feel small so they can control you. I've learned to spot fake concerns that's really just a power grab. I've learned that I'm just trying to help often means I'm just trying to take control. And I've learned to say no. A complete sentence. No explanation needed. No justification required. Just no. The women at the senior center joke that I'm feisty now. They mean it as a compliment, but it also makes me a little sad. Because I'm not feisty. I'm just present. I'm just taking up the space I always deserved to take up. The fact that this is considered remarkable tells you everything about how we're taught to diminish ourselves as we age. Especially women. Especially mothers. We're supposed to fade gracefully into the background. To be grateful for whatever attention our families give us. To never complain, never demand, never insist on our own needs. We're supposed to be endlessly giving and never receiving. Endlessly forgiving and never holding grudges. Endlessly available and never too busy. Well, I'm done with that. I'm busy now. I'm busy living my life. I'm busy protecting my peace. I'm busy being happy. And if that makes me feisty? Good. I got a letter last month from Lena's mother. I didn't even know she had my address. The letter was long and rambling, but the message was clear: I was destroying her daughter's life. Lena was depressed. The marriage was falling apart. The children missed their grandmother. Couldn't I find it in my heart to forgive? To let bygones be bygones? To think about the children? I read that letter 3 times. And then I threw it away. Because here's what Lena's mother didn't say: I'm sorry for what they did to you. I'm sorry you were betrayed and robbed and left homeless. I'm sorry my daughter participated in elder abuse. I'm sorry they traumatized you. She didn't say any of that. Because in her mind, I'm the problem. I'm the one being unreasonable. I'm the one holding a grudge. I'm the one who should rise above and forgive and forget, because that's what good mothers do. But I'm not interested in being a good mother anymore. That's what got me into this mess. I'm interested in being a healthy person. A safe person. A person who doesn't let toxic people back into her life just because they share her DNA. The grandchildren. That's the argument people use when they want me to feel guilty. Don't you want a relationship with your grandchildren? Don't you miss them? Of course I miss them. I miss the children they were. I miss reading them bedtime stories and baking cookies with them and watching them learn to ride bikes. But those children are gone. They're older now. They've been poisoned against me. Lena made sure of that. They call me Rachel, remember? They were taught not to see me as family. And even if I could rebuild a relationship with them, what would I be teaching them? That you can treat people horribly and they'll still welcome you back. Is that abuse acceptable as long as you're family? That forgiveness is mandatory regardless of whether there's genuine remorse? No. I'd rather they never know me than teach them those lessons. Maybe someday, when they're adults, when they're old enough to understand what really happened, they'll reach out. They'll ask questions. They'll want my side of the story. And maybe then, if they approach me with genuine curiosity and respect, I'll consider building something with them. But that's their journey to make. Not mine. I'm not going to chase them. I'm not going to beg for a relationship with people who were taught I'm not worth knowing. I've spent too many years begging for crumbs. I'm done. Jessie checks in with me once a month. She's become more than my attorney. She's become a friend. She told me recently that she's seen hundreds of elder abuse cases in her career, and most of them end the same way: the victim forgives the abuser because the pressure to keep the family together is overwhelming. But you, she said, shaking her head with something like admiration, you actually did it. You actually walked away and built a new life. Do you know how rare that is? I didn't know. I just knew I couldn't go back. Couldn't forgive something that wasn't actually being apologized for. Couldn't rebuild something that had been intentionally destroyed. Jessie told me Daniel is struggling. Financially, emotionally, socially. He can't get a good job with his criminal record. He's estranged from most of his friends who learned what he did. Lena's family barely speaks to them. They're living in a tiny apartment, scraping by. Part of me, a very small part, feels sorry for him. He destroyed his life along with mine. He gave up everything for $400,000 and a dream of Belgium that evaporated the moment the police got involved. But mostly, I feel nothing. His consequences are not my responsibility. His suffering is not my problem. He made his choices. Now he lives with them. Just like I live with mine. The choice to press charges. The choice to walk away. The choice to build a new life instead of trying to salvage the old one. These were my choices. And I stand by them. People sometimes ask me if I regret having Daniel. If I wish I'd never been a mother. And the answer is complicated. I don't regret the child he was. I don't regret the years I spent raising him, loving him, believing in him. Those years were real. That love was real. The fact that he grew into someone who could betray me doesn't erase the good moments we had. But do I wish I'd done things differently? Yes. I wish I'd maintained stronger boundaries. I wish I'd kept my financial independence. I wish I'd listened to my instincts when something felt wrong. I wish I'd valued myself as much as I valued being a mother. Those are the lessons I carry now. And if I could go back and tell my younger self anything, it would be this: your identity cannot be entirely wrapped up in being someone's mother. You have to remain yourself. You have to protect yourself. Because your children will grow up and leave, one way or another, and you need to have a self to come back to when they're gone. I didn't have that. When Jack died, I lost myself in widowhood. When Daniel invited me to move in, I lost myself in being a grandmother and a guest in his home. I kept shrinking and shrinking until there was almost nothing left of Rachel. Just a convenient figure who could babysit and cook and be grateful for whatever scraps of family life she was allowed to participate in. But I'm back now. Rachel is back. And she's never disappearing again. The sun has set completely now. The gardens are dark except for the solar lights along the pathways. I can hear Patricia's door opening. She's always exactly on time for our walks. In a moment, she'll knock, and I'll grab my sweater, and we'll do our usual loop while she tells me about her daughter's latest drama and I listen and offer advice and never, ever mention my own family situation. That's another thing I've learned: you don't have to tell everyone everything. Some pain is private. Some stories don't need to be shared. I don't need Patricia's pity or advice. I just need her friendship. Her presence. Her choice to show up at my door every evening and invite me to walk with her. That's enough. More than enough. Before I go, let me tell you the real lesson here. The one I want you to hear. The one that matters more than all the details of what Daniel did or what I lost or how I rebuilt. Never underestimate the strength of someone who has been quiet too long. I was quiet for years. Quiet in my grief after Jack died. Quiet in my diminishment at Daniel's house. Quiet in my confusion about what was happening to me. I was so quiet that Daniel thought I was weak. He thought I was easy to erase. He thought I would just accept what he did and fade away into nothing. He was wrong. And if someone in your life is counting on your quietness, your passivity, your willingness to accept mistreatment because you don't want to make waves, they're wrong too. You are stronger than you think. You are more resilient than you know. You can survive betrayal and loss and starting over. You can build a new life from nothing. You can walk away from people you love when loving them means destroying yourself. You can do all of it. Even when you're 68 years old and you feel like your life is over. It's not over. It's just beginning. Again. Family is not defined by blood. It's defined by respect and love and showing up. If your family doesn't respect you, doesn't love you in a way that honors who you are, doesn't show up for you in meaningful ways, they're not your family. They're just people you happen to share DNA with. Real family is the woman next door who brings you coffee every morning. It's the friend who walks with you every evening. It's the book club that saves you a seat. It's the community that sees you and values you and chooses you. That's family. That's what matters. And if you have to walk away from your blood relatives to find your real family, do it. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting yourself. Don't let anyone convince you that forgiveness is mandatory or that family loyalty means accepting abuse. Your life matters. Your peace matters. Your happiness matters. And you don't owe anyone, not even your own children, access to your life if they've proven they'll use that access to hurt you. So protect yourself. Set boundaries. Walk away when you need to. Build a new life. Find new people. Create new memories. And never, ever apologize for choosing yourself. Because at the end of the day, you're the only person who's guaranteed to be with you from the beginning of your life to the end. You might as well make sure that person, yourself, is someone you respect. Someone you protect. Someone you love. I'm Rachel Lancaster. I'm 70 years old now. And I've finally learned to put myself first. It only took losing everything to figure it out. But now that I know, I'm never forgetting it again. My name is Rachel Lancaster. I survived my son's betrayal. I rebuilt my life. And I'm happier now than I've been in years. If you're watching this because you're going through something similar, because someone you love has betrayed you, because you're wondering if you'll survive this, let me tell you, you will. You absolutely will. It won't be easy. It won't be quick. Some days you'll want to give up. Some days you'll want to forgive just to make the pain stop. Some days you'll miss them so much it feels like dying. But you'll survive. You'll rebuild. And one day, you'll be sitting on your own balcony, drinking your own tea, living your own peaceful life, and you'll realize, you're free. You're happy. You're exactly where you need to be. And that person who hurt you? They'll be a memory. A lesson. A chapter in your story that's closed. But your story isn't over. It's just beginning. So wherever you're watching from, whatever time it is there, whatever you're going through, know this, you're stronger than you think. You deserve better than you're getting. And you can start over, no matter how old you are or how impossible it seems. I did it. And if I can do it, so can you. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for being here. And remember, never underestimate a woman who has finally decided she's had enough. We're more powerful than anyone gives us credit for. Especially ourselves. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more real stories like this one and click on the image showing on your screen to watch another real story. Trust me, it's more crazier and heartwarming than you can ever imagine. See you in the next story.